Okay, so we are live now, and we still have a couple of minutes before people will join us. So we still have a couple of minutes. Just let's talk about how is the lockdown in India? How are you keeping on?
Lockdown is pretty bad, and I think most of the states are in very bad shape right now. Hopefully, things get better in coming weeks and months. And yes, especially cities like Bangalore, Bombay, and Chennai are being hit very badly, and Delhi, yes, also. So the metro cities now new trend in Tamil Nadu, the state I live in, the smaller towns and smaller villages are the numbers are rising, which is alarming because the argument being that people who moved from bigger cities to these towns and villages, I know, are the reason why the numbers are increasing, and nobody is coming forward to check or anything. So they also not I don't think they are in self quarantine. They are not able to sort of stay at home or something. People are moving around freely in smaller towns and villages, which is not a good trend. Hopefully, people get to their senses and stay home and come forward to check and self isolate or self quarantine themselves. So, hopefully, okay.
Good message from Jai Kumar. So it's a very difficult time for everyone, and just to manage to survive and create, right? We all have to put through our efforts to go on live on Facebook, on Zoom, whatever we can. And it's time to start our interactive conversation. So the very interesting and very important topic today is the importance of music knowledge for dancers. We are taking Carnatic music and Bharatanatyam because this is what we are more familiar with, especially me. And so this is subject that I've been trying to tell for many years, but it's actually very difficult from my perspective because I'm not a musician, I'm only the dancer. And it's so important that we bring musicians into our dance field. And from the very beginning, when you start learning dance, you will actually start introducing yourself or your kids to importance of the music knowledge. So please welcome, this is Jai Kumar Bharadwaj from Chennai, and I know him from Kalakshetra. We were in the same year. And to say the least, he's the pool of knowledge, not only in Carnatic music, he's collecting so many diverse ideas, knowledge. He's collecting his master degrees and he's working on research. He's also the director of the tour company called Courtyard Tours, right? And that's what actually reconnected us recently. He gave us amazing tour around Kanchipuram. And that was the history of like 5 temples, right? That took us so much time, but it was so interesting. So if you ever go to India, please don't miss the tours. Like, recommend it. Really happy about it. So Jai Kumar, can you tell us more about like what your research is into, like your subjects and what you can tell us about?
Thank you, Oksana, for the lovely introduction, and thank you, Cosmic Dance Company, for this wonderful session. This is a subject I'm very passionate about to talk about Bharatanatyam and the music for the Bharatanatyam and the dancers and musicians. I'm an alumni of Kalakshetra. I have had the pleasure of sharing the same batch of same year with Oksana. And after finishing my course at Kalakshetra, I got interested in history, and I pursued my master's in history and master's in Tamil literature. And I did a diploma in Shaiva Siddhanta, studying Shaivite philosophy and religion. and rather history of it. I'm not a practicing philosopher. I just studied history of Shaiva Siddhanta and Shaivite philosophy. And I have been working on cultural history of South India for the last 10 years now. So when I mean cultural history, it includes temple architecture, iconography, literature, music, dance, inscriptions, arts and crafts. So which includes bronze making, sculptures, etc. So that's the area I'm very passionate about. And this particular session, I'm really excited to share my ideas and thoughts on the inseparable connection between Bharatanatyam and music. So I'm very excited to talk with you and happy to share and what I have experienced in the last 10 years or so.
Thank you. Like every time I talk to you, I find so many new things. So you are like, I'm so happy to know you. And I think as dancers, we were when we were like learning all the theory, there were like 64 kalas, right? The dancer has to know 64 arts before she or he can become a dancer.
Yeah.
So this is something that you are taking on like in your life, right? You're trying to collect all this knowledge.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that, again, dancers should really think about it. Everything you mentioned, the historical heritage, the Hinduism, everything, I think we should at least try and research a little bit more.
Trying is the word. Trying, yes.
Well, trying at least, this is such a great area of interest, and it will make us a little like better humans, not dancers. And if you have an interest in India, like I do, like I have this amazing, interest in Indian culture and Indian arts. And the more I know, the more I want to know. So let's start. I have prepared a couple of questions that have been in my mind for a long time. So let's see if our guests viewers will kind of find it interesting as well. So let's start with the history of dance and music. It's really popular to say now, I'm doing the temple dance, I'm doing the Devadasi dance, and it's very attractive for people to this idea of doing something very ancient. But could you actually tell us what are the similarities between when the Devadasis were dancing in the temples? Were they dancing same compositions, or was it something different?
So very important and interesting question to start with. So what we perform or what we sing and you dancers perform on stage, what we call it as a margam, the set of compositions that is being presented on stage across the world today, which goes on for 1.5 to 2 hours. The margam as we see today, it is not more than 100 years old. Not the compositions, I mean the idea of margam, the way we present it, it is not more than 100 years old. The set of compositions that includes Pushpanjali, Shabdam, Alaripu, Jatiswaram, Padavarnam, Padam, Javali, Tilana, each composition in our dance repertoire have a different time period of origin. For information, the Javali, the most beautiful and musical piece, it is composed not more than 200 years. The origin of Javali is not more than 200 years. People suggest that during the Wadiyar kings, their time in Mysore, the Tanjore quartet, one of the brothers, he was there in Mysore as a court musician. Around that time, it all started. They say the word Javali literally means a very lewd poetry or a vulgar composition of that sort, but musically beautiful. And later, it was adopted in Tamil theatre and even Telugu films. You have certain Javalis are being performed in the 1940s and 50s, which has been recorded by scholars. And Padam, as we see today, one of the most complicated and beautiful, again, musically beautiful, when you are emotionally do it, understanding the piece of it musically, that composition is not more than 400 to 500 years old. Though the ideas, the seed of this particular composition, we can even date it back to Sangam period. In Tamil literature, we have a Sangam period which dates as early as 3rd century BC. But what we see in Telugu, because most of the padams are in Telugu, beautiful Telugu, and Tamil, and some of them are in Sanskrit, the composition is not more than 400 to 500 years old. The main repertoire, the main item in our repertoire is Padavarnam. the origins of it in some of them say in Someshwara Manasollasa, a work which of 12th century speaks about Varna Prabandha. So Prabandha is a composition, musical composition, which is obsolete now, from which you can say the Varna and Kriti and Kirtana, the origin of all those compositions are from a particular composition type of composition called Prabandha, which is essential. And when it comes to Jatiswaram, again, we have from Annamacharya, 14th, 15th century. And you have Alaripu and Pushpanjali. Perhaps Pushpanjali, Shabdam is also around the same 200, 300-year-old item. And Pushpanjali and certain items like Kautuam their origins can be dated back to 5th to 7th century onwards, because Kautuam is something apparently before you starting the performance, it is done in praise of the gods to ensure the program or the performances go well. That is where the Kautum. So, Nalvarna Bhutam. There are 4 Bhutas, that deities that are mentioned in Silappatikaram. Apparently, Madhavi, before her Arangetram, she paid her respects to all these gods in 4 directions, and and then started. And when it comes to making a statement like I'm dancing a traditional dance, a traditional repertoire, well and good, agreed, and a lot of respect for those dancers who try to maintain that tradition and all that. But when we say we are doing the temple dance or a Devadasi dance, I think there seems to be a lot of misunderstanding and a lot of misconceptions. And what we dance is courtesan dance. Some of the the courtesan dance repertoire is little different from what the dancers of temple dancers danced. So there seems to be a lot of misconceptions and misunderstanding in terms of repertoire that being performed. If at all, if they claim Padams and Javalis, that's a courtesan piece. And when it comes to temple dancing, I think the Navasandi Kautuvam and Bhakti poetry such as Tirupalli Elchi, Talattu, Unjal, the Tirupalli Elchi is when you wake the god up in the early morning, and the Talat is when you put the gods into sleep on the swing. So those compositions are from temples, but whether we dance it in the same way that they danced, which is questionable, because I think the times have changed, the venues and the viewers of the performances have changed. We can proudly claim the roots from temples and courts of the kings who were ruling from almost 6th century onwards. But to claim that what we are dancing is absolutely Devadasi's tradition or Devadasi repertoire, there I have my differences of opinions with. But this is how the structure is being made. What we present today for 90 minutes on a stage, the idea of the Margam is not more than 100 years old. That's what I would say. Yes.
Wow, that's so insightful. So I guess the Pushpanjalis and Kautvams are probably the oldest compositions that we know.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about musicians who were singing for temple dances? Were they court musicians? Were they associated with Devadasis in any way? Were they like, do we have information about that?
Yes, absolutely. Yes, the musicians were integral part of the dance community. Right from Silappatikaram, Vaivanyam Natya Shastra clearly codifies a dancer should also be an excellent singer. That is the inequality that is required on each dancer. So Madhavi, again, I'm quoting Silappatikaram because that is a Tamil text which elaborately speaks about dance and music. So that becomes a very, very important reference point for anybody who research on Tamil dance tradition or Bharatanatyam and the word Natyam and Devadasis, what they danced Sadir. I want to mention about those 2 words first. Silappatikaram in when Madhavi did her Arangetram, the dancer, they say she danced according to the Natya Nannu. The word Natya is mentioned clearly in Silappatikaram. So the Natya is a very, very old term. Before that, the Sangam poetry, if Silappatikaram can be considered as a 5th century text, Sangam poetries can be dated back to 3rd century BC to 3rd century Common Era. And there the word Kuttu is mentioned. The Kuttar, that is a different tradition. The singing bards are nomadic bards where people moved from one place to another and sang in courts of the kings. So those traditional singers, dancers were Kuttar, Viraliyar. Those are the terms that are used. When it comes to Sadir, the earliest reference to Sadir comes in Bhakti literature, that is Tevaram, that was composed by Trinyana Sambandar in 7th century. There he mentions Lord Shiva dancing. To mention that he is dancing, he says Sadir Eid. So Sadir can be traced back to 7th century. When it comes to Pushpanjali and Alaripu, yes, Pushpanjali is integral part of temple dancing tradition. Of course, every time you do the Navasandhikathon, along with that ritual takes place, the Pushpanjali. When it comes to Alaripu, Alaripu is a very, very interesting term because Alar in Tamil means flower. So Alaripu and Pushpanjali, it's all about offering flowers. And the musicians, the dance and the musicians accompanying the dancer, they were called as Chinnamelam. They were integral part of both the temple music band as well as the court musicians. And when it comes to court musicians, they always had a long hours of performances. So they had set of musicians and set of dancers who come and go and perform that. When it comes to temple, each dancer who are associated, or group of dancers who were associated with a particular temple, that temple has a codified ritual practices, set of ritual practices. According to that, the dancer has to do the ritual every day. So it's always one family knowing the tradition of a particular temple, from one Devadasi to her daughter, from there to her daughter. That's how the knowledge system and the repertoire transferred or transformed. So post Bhakti period, things slowly start changing, and you had Rajaraja Chola who transferred Devadasis or Talicheri Pendigal from different temples to his temple that he built in capital. So that slowly that also starts happening. One Devadasi or one dancer being transferred from one temple to another temple. So that also happens.
Wow, this is so interesting. I think we can talk for the whole hour to actually like just going through this, but unfortunately we're only here for 1 hour in total. So the next I would like to mention, because both of us from Kalakshetra, right? And there is no denial that it really shaped us as people, as artists, as so could you talk about what is the difference of choices that Kalakshetra made for their compositions for music and dance? Because we know that some hereditary families, like they probably follow what's been going through their family tradition line tree, as you whatever you can say. So how does Kalakshetra chooses the items?
That's a very, very important question. I think what happened is around the 19th century onwards, the traditional courtesan dancers started losing their patronage due to political and socio-cultural political scenario that was going on in Madras presidency or South India around that time. And in the early part of the 1900s, by then, the society, the social mindset in Chennai and other places started looking down on these dancers. That's not the first time in history. Earlier post-Sangam period, we have set of literature which also speaks ill about dancers and musicians and of that. That is for some other time. Let us focus on more on Kalakshetra and institutions such as Kalakshetra. The biggest difference that happened before going into repertoire was institutionalization of art forms. That is a key change that happened in the 1900s, I guess. Once Rukmini Devi was performed her Arangetram, there itself she did some changes in terms of she added kritis and kirtanams that were not done traditionally by the dancers. We shouldn't also forget around the same time or a little later, a dancer from a hereditary artist family, that is the legendary Bala Saraswati, started dancing kritis also. She has done for Krishnani Begine Baro as being one of her hallmark composition. I don't think it was originally performed by the traditional Devadasis here, but she even went on to do that, and she's known for that piece. And when it comes to Rukmini Devi and Kalakshetra, I would like to highlight again that the way that she chose, because I think when she started teaching dance, she started feeling that she was teaching young girls, and Shringara Padams and Javalis might not suit them at that time. It is not something, it is not as if she was against Shringara poetry, because if she was really against Shringara piece, she wouldn't have gone to choreograph Jayadeva's Ashtapadis, because that is a Shringara poetry by itself. But I think the social mindset in Madras that time was, sending these girls to learn dance was a big thing. And if at all, if you had to go and teach them Shringara Padams, but the parents might not prefer to do that, because she had to convince people to send them for dance classes as well. I think which enabled later Bala Saraswati to also start teaching dance at the Madras Music Academy. She went on to teach abroad. She has carried that hereditary repertoire with her. And Kalakshetra, by then they also started admitting boys, because once Rukmini Devi started to choreograph dance dramas, she needed boys. She brought boys from Kerala and other parts of Madras Presidency. Then around that they had to start constructing repertoire. So I think Ananda Natana Prakasham is one of the earliest pieces that she adopted. Initially, apparently, Pandanallur Meenakshi Sundaram Pillai, who was her guru, was not very happy about it, but he helped her to do kais, or add hands for that wonderful compositions, and he was very encouraging. Even then, the traditional Natuna is also adopting and adapting to a new setup. Where the cities and new cities were born, and new cities, the venues were changed, the performances have changed. So the Natunas were also quite open to such ideas to add such repertoire. So I think kritis were added, and later such as kirtanams were added into repertoire. And the legendary one that we know is Mugattai Kaatiya Degam Mulumayam Kaatada Mulumandiram Edaya. That is one of the most wonderful kirtanams. I wouldn't call it as a padam. It is done as a padam, but it is a wonderful kirtanam of Papa Vinasha Mudaliyar. That was done. And certain changes, and if at all, if Balama was known for Mohamana in Bhairavi, Rukmini Devi chose to do Rupa Mujuchi, both being on Tyagaraja of Tiruvarur, two different compositions. One is Absolute Shingara Bhava, and Rupa Mujuchi speaks about the secrecy and the idea of Tyagaraja itself. In a way, it is very, very interesting. Varnam that was adopted to Kalakshetra repertoire, and then Tanjore quartet compositions were slowly being taught at Kalakshetra. In that sense, Kalakshetra somehow tried to stick with the traditional repertoire, but they had to adapt to modern requirements and modern changing times. So in that sense, Kalakshetra had played a very significant role, and as well as it was an eye-opener for many of the dancers who learned from different gurus in the city. And then they went on to open their own institution, started teaching, because you had Mrinalini Sarabhai also learning around that time. And when she started teaching in Ahmedabad and Baroda and all that, and they started adopting some of the Kabir bhajans were also taught. You have the Surdas bhajans, the Bhakti poetry, Meera bhajans were being performed. So around the 40s and 50s, you saw a new wave of change. And after that, you see now most of the new composers many of the brilliant musicians have composed wonderful Padavaranams and Tilanas and things like that. In that sense, Kalakshetra was a new beginning. Yes.
Yeah, in a way, it's changing. It's constantly changing. And yes. It's surprising for me that, the Kirtanams are like one of the most liked by dancers. And they actually, as you said, they were just introduced recently again. So it's very interesting to find that out.
Yeah, and also you had the idea of new compositions being choreographed. They found it challenging, whatever they thought it could add value to the particular piece or particular musical item. I think they took that up and started dancing. And also Shringara Padams cannot be performed by men. That was a mindset they had then. Even now, many of the male dancers, they don't think they take up the Kshetriya Padams very easily. They take it as a challenge, and some of them are very convincingly extremely good about in performing such Padams. Javali is also such because it's all written in a form of expressive poetry from women's perspective. Very few have that idea of Javali or Padam having a male perspective. I don't come across very easily that. So we don't have such repertoire. So, and also when it comes to expressive, I think the romance had its own beauty when it was expressed in a women's perspective. Yes.
So that's interesting point as well. So maybe in the future we'll have like a totally male repertoire, right? That's composed.
Yeah, that's a bit challenging, and I don't know whether it will be as good as that. And yes, one thing, speaking about repertoire, I would like to highlight to all the dancers out there. Of course, yes, you have beautiful Alari Pushpanjali, Shabdam, Jatiswaram, and Padavarnam, Padam, Javali, Tilana, etc. In the recent time, post 50s, you have many of the legendary musicians such as Lalgudi Jayaraman or Balamurali Krishna sir, and many other composers have written Padavarnams and Tilanas. And yes, they are musically extremely good. I take this up at this juncture. Many of might find it offensive, but not all of them are suited for dancing. If at all, if you have to look up to a hallmark of composition, nothing can go beyond Tanjore Quartet. The Chinnaya, Ponnaya, Shivananda Madivelu, I would beg every dancer around the world to take those compositions, have a look at them. And very another point I would like to make is Padavarnam and Tilanas have their own grammar and own definition and everything. And all these modern composers have not attempted to compose any Javali or Padams, but they have composed Padavarnam and Tilanas. Musically, they're extremely good. I think the dancer's responsibility to understand how it is suited, if at all, if it is suited, how we are going to adapt it to our Bharatanatyam repertoire. At this time, at this juncture, I would make a very clear, distinction of Tanjore Quartet. It's like the utmost quality in terms of music, and their Padavarnams, most of the Varnams are not even danced these days. Very few are going around, and new compositions. I think the dancers also get fascinated by the modern composers or new compositions, which is exciting in a way. But I don't think we should lose those wonderful compositions of Tanjore Quartet, even if it is Jatiswaram, Shabdam, and things like that. And another thing I would like to add is Shabdams are always done in Raga Kamboji. And we have a tendency, even my alma mater Kalakshetra, with all due respect, I would say that is not the right thing to change the ragas that were originally composed by the composer. The musicians usually, if a Tyagaraja composition is changed sung in a different raga, I get offended. Same thing, same logic applies for Tanjore Quartet's repertoire as well. Shabdams are meant in Kamboji. They have composed all the Shabdams of Tanjore Quartet are composed in Kamboji. I don't think we should attempt to change it to Ragamalika or different ragas. That is not something I would agree upon. I hope I made that point very strongly.
Yeah,
thank you, Oksana, for giving this platform to speak out my thoughts.
That's interesting because we all, like as dancers, know that Shabdams are usually in Raga Malika, and that's how we know them. So this is interesting to learn.
Yeah. So the ragam is particularly chosen for a particular reason. So that in that sense, I think we should respect and leave it at that. People think it sounds very monotonous, but let it be. It's okay, because all the Kathakali performances start with Kedara Gowda. The second song they started in Kedara Gowda because they are starting at the high note, higher octave. That raga gives that scope. Nobody dares to change it. I don't know why we should change it in our dance repertoire. So, and also, yes, Tanjore Quartet, nothing as beautiful as their compositions. Please look into it and enjoy the musicality. Yeah.
So dancers, please research Tanjore Quartet. Please put their compositions into your repertoire. So that brings us to the next point, which is actually very interesting for me, because even I just started thinking about it recently. Like as dancers, we don't really ask musicians about how we dance, what we should dance. Usually you just tell musicians what your margam is, and then they come and play and they go. So as a musician, what is your advice for dancers? How to improve? What to choose to perform? Because you've seen so many performances, you've sung for so many dancers. You have your opinion that is not usually heard. So this is your chance to actually speak out, and hopefully we'll take it on board.
That is a very essential point that you made. And there are many musicians who are much more experienced than me in singing for dance, because there are singers who are out there who have been singing for Bharatanatyam for the last 30 to 35 years. I have, to be honest with you, I have worked with very few set of dancers, and I have been very keenly working with them. And particularly, there are a few dancers I work very closely with. We have created a rapport, and that is very essential for any musician or a dancer. If at all, if you can work with a team for a long time, it is very essential, because the dancer knows the musician throughout, the musician knows the dancer. But the dialogue is very, very important. Even before, if you are a new musician or a new dancer who are not familiar with each other, before a performance or a performance tour that is going to last for a few weeks, it's very essential to start having the dialogue of how they have understood the piece, the historicity of each item, historicity of each composition that you are dancing. And that is very essential for a dancer as well as the musician. It is not always the responsibility of the dancer, it is always a responsibility of the musician as well, to understand each composition that he or she is going to sing for a particular dancer that they are going to work with. If it is a Jatiswaram, know it thoroughly, ragas. And when the dancer is also choosing the repertoire, I would always request the dancer to go through the ragas as well, because some of the ragas might sound very similar. If at all, if you have two items or a composition back to back, sounding same, musically it might not be very appealing. If at all, if you are convinced the dance is going to make the audience or a musician forget about the similarity in the raga, go ahead and do it. But I would ask them to be very, very careful in in choosing the composition. That is very essential. Ensure the ragas you are performing one after the other are not sounding very similar. That is very, very essential. For example, I'll give you Shankarabharanam and Hamsadhvani, or Shankarabharanam and Kalyani might not go well one after the other. Musically, it might not sound as good as well. So if at all, if the mood is different, if the bhava or the rasa that is expressed there is different, that might not be the problem on a larger scale. But if at all, if your repertoire is vast, you have learned many compositions as a student, then go ahead and keep and mix variety of ragas and compositions, which will actually enhance the performance, as well as will be very challenging and interesting for the musician as well. And dialogue between the dancer and musician off the stage and on the stage are very essential. And even now I have the habit, I shouldn't be saying, but looking at the lyric is I understand which is key. And also the number of times are fixed in these days, and because I do it 6 times, after the 7th time you go to the next line, seems to be the case. I think somehow they should avoid both the musician and dancers. If at all, if the dancer is going one line extra, repeats extra, if a musician repeats it extra, I think we should be able to work around that very, very carefully and very beautifully. That is the importance, because those days it was not the case. When Balama, I'm not saying everybody can match up to the quality, but that is the quality we should strive for and aim for. Even if we achieve 50 to 40 to 30% of what they were able to do, I think we will be better dancers and musicians. It goes for both musicians and dancers as well. I have a tendency to say, no, you told me only 7 times I should sing, but you did it 8th time. And that also opposite also happens. I think we should try to reduce those and create a better environment on the stage, because at the end of the day, everybody wants a good performance, and these things are very essential. Working with a dancer for a bit a long time, you are paying me only so much, only I will come for 2 rehearsals, might not work as well. I'm talking for the musicians such as me. I would go for more rehearsals, and that is because a busy musician, not all the musicians are able to have that luxury of giving more number of rehearsals. It has become that because a senior musician has 15 to 20 performances in the season. Even if he gives 2 rehearsals per dancer, that becomes 30 already, and then you have 15 performances. That's going to be really affecting his voice. But if at all, if somebody is able to give that time and start working around their timings, and because singing for dance is challenging, it is not something you sing on stage. A kacheri musician is something is very difficult. Singing for there is a notion that singing for dance is easy. In my experience, it is not the case. Though I'm the least experienced, maybe there are many senior musicians, as I have said, but it is challenging. It is challenging. It is exciting. It is wonderful to sing for dance, and over a period of time, of course, I try to do better each time, but I also try to understand the historicity of dance compositions and choreography. If at all, if I get an opportunity to sit with a dancer who is in the progress of choreographing, that is nothing like exciting like that, because you are there, you are both working together. That is something has become a luxury today. I understand that, but these are the key points. If at all, if you're not able to do it in the way that I suggest, but at least do it in a way, start having a conversation, know the compositions better, and knowing the lyric of each composition is very better. It's very, very essential, both for the dancer and the musician. Because if at all, if you're doing a padam, Indindu vachidivira aladhani illu eevidi kaadu popora, they have to have the dialogue, read it out loud, so that the pronunciation of the language, the pronunciation of the lyric becomes better, words become better, everybody registers the lyric on their mind. That is very essential. Whether it is da or da, these things should be clarified much before the performance. When you start singing, I have done that. You are not sure what lyric it is, whether it is ta or da. So these things should be clarified much before. So that is very, very essential for both, for musician and dancer as well.
So as you mentioned, live musicians are luxury, especially for us living abroad. So we have no choice rather than work with recorded music. And
when you then you have to be very careful with your recordings and recorded music. And you understand that is also very, very difficult, because if you can't afford a live musician all the time. If you are doing a recorded music, then you are restricted by it. That's it. I'm not saying you are completely gone for a toss. You can still pull out an extraordinary performance with the recorded music, because when there is nothing you can do about it, yes, you have to go with what you have. So yeah.
So would the choice be different, for example, for a live performance? Would you choose different repertoire for recorded performance? I would understand it will be shorter because you already it's not a big deal, right? You have your stage which is empty, it's just you, so it will not be 1 hour and a half. So would you say that you would choose different items?
Different dancers might think differently, but I would say, if at all, if you are choosing a repertoire with a recorded music, I would say you choose songs or compositions that are not that you don't explore too much on the stage. In that sense, I'm saying, but you do a padavarnam, you want to improvise, but it's a recorded music. After 60 or 40 seconds, next line is going to start. You have to keep editing in your mind. That is very, very difficult. So choose a repertoire, because that is a very important question that you have asked. Because choose a repertoire wisely. Then you choose 1.5 hours of performance with it has. However, if you are doing a padavarnam with a recorded music, it is a restricted space and restricted time. You won't be able to explore. You might not enjoy the process as much, because if you're going to you're going to do 4 performances in a particular country, and all you have is recorded music, and you have only one margam, then you are definitely restricted. And within that, you need to work around and improvise, which is going to be difficult. You might choose compositions that are not, doesn't give you much of scope to explore on the stage much. But then you choose such pieces. But if at all, if you're experienced for 5 to 10 years of performance of the same padavarnam, each time, though it is a recorded music, you work around and try to express different emotions and different bhavas, different sancharis in a way that you would like to improvise. So that is a very pertinent question. Yeah, that you need to work around. That is, it's a restricted framework, but within that, I think we need to work on the dancers.
This is the
can
reality. Reality of our lifestyle.
The reality, yes. I absolutely agree.
As much as we want live music, it's almost like a dream. So we'll hope and we'll keep praying for that.
Absolutely.
So the next question I have is, what are the tips, again, from your point as musicians, for dancers to actually, how would we learn, learn the music to improve your dance? It's so important, right? I experienced it myself in Kalakshetra. You must pass your exams, otherwise you just cannot go through. And I really suffered, but I'm really grateful for that, because that really makes you a better dancer in a way that you understand, as you said, lyrics, you understand the composition, ragas, you know how to move. Even if you cannot sing yourself, you have the sense of that, what I'm supposed to actually do. So do you have any tips for dancers, especially dancers who live and learn abroad? Like how can we improve in our musicality?
Uh, oh, so as I said earlier, the dance texts themselves say that learning music and singing is essential for all the dancers. And throughout history, we find dancers being extremely good singers as well. And the best example in recent times could be of Bala Saraswati Amma, extraordinary musician. And in our times, we have the best dancer, Dr. Swapna Sundari, who is a Vilasini dancer, an extremely good musician, extremely, she's a fantastic musician. I have seen a live performance where she decides her padam on the stage. She looks at her musician and said, what padam we should do today. That was her. I understand it is not possible for all the dancers around the world to have that luxury of accessing good musician or good music teacher as well. You get to have good dancers, dance teachers, and not you might not be able to have great access to improve or learn music. But I would advise all the dance students around the world to make an attempt to start learning music along with your dance, because institutions like Kalakshetra, even hereditary dancers, they sing and teach. Datunas were extraordinary musicians. They were doing Natuangam, and they were teaching. The important aspect of Devadasi's life was learning music as well as theory. It was not as if though the Devadasis never learned the theory. They studied the theory. But they studied the theory along with their mother. They were practicing it. It was not one set of syllabus and they were writing exams. It was not the case. So Lakshana and Lakshya, both practical and theory, were taught together. When it comes to music, on today's dancers, I would request them to get on to some sort of music learning, and also at least start learning the basics and then move on to your own dance repertoire. If you're learning Vasanta Jatiswaram or Shabdam or your Kalyani Jatiswaram, start singing them. Of course, in the beginning, you might not think that you are capable of singing, but trying, I'm sure if you're a good dancer, some scope of music should be there. Definitely it will be there. I'm very sure about that. Don't ask me, and don't ask me to prove it scientifically, but I'm saying that musicality, because the music moves somebody's ears and then they start moving. If a musician is singing extremely well, you automatically are on the stage, your rhythm and your flow changes, your thought process changes. But for the beginners, I request take up music classes. It's very key, because the musicality can make you a very good dancer, much better than you are right now. So at least learn the basic of Carnatic music if you're a Bharatanatyam dancer, and start learning your compositions, whatever you are being taught in your class, and your Jatiswaram, your Shabdam, your Padam and Javali, Tillana, some Kirtanam. It could be, if at all, if your music dance teacher is not able to help you in music, at least every institution or every guru abroad who are teaching dance should enable their kids to have access to good music as well. And also that goes for Natuangam, Talam. Talam is key. Talam, learning your rhythmic structure and your jatis and your syllables. Those are very important. If at all, if the foreign students are not able to have access in their own country, I think now there is always digital teaching. There are wonderful Natunas who teach Natuangam online. There are people who can teach, Mridangam artists who can teach Talam. And so in that sense, music is very, very, very essential for dancers. I request, and I think it is key. It is the key for making your dance better. Music appreciation is also listening. Before every piece that you learn for dance, I think the teachers should encourage them to play the music in a tape recorder, sung by some musician. Even if the teacher want to sing themselves, sing it multiple times for the students to get the tune in their head and then in their mind, so that they know the nuances of that piece. At least at the beginning, they might not be able to sing as good as the teacher, but the music can sort of get into their mind, so that has to be sung multiple times in the classes, even as simple as Jatiswaram. So if you're doing a Kalyani Jatiswaram, sing that composition at least 10 times before you start teaching, or record it for them and give it to them, ask them to listen to it at their homes. And also listening to regular concerts helps. Listening to Padams and Javali dance repertoire helps. listening to a good concert. You have enormous amount of recording online today. Listen to early masters. You could be a fan of MS Subbulakshmi, MLV, or DKP, or even modern day singers, and current day singers such as Bombay Jayashree, Sudha Raghunathan ma'am. There are plenty of extremely good singers who also sing padams and javalis in their concerts. So so those listening helps. The listening really, really helps. And the padams and javalis are sung very beautifully by some of the contemporary musicians, and also the older recordings are available. So my humble request to the dancers is to increase your music sensibilities and to develop that. It is not a science, to sort of, it's something very difficult to develop or something. There methodologically you can develop. It is not that difficult. With proper training and guidance, I think definitely we all can develop our musical senses. And also for the musicians who are into dance, I think I would watch them. I request them to watch dance performances and see the maestros performing, such as Kalakshatra legendaries and other artists such as Alan Melvally, whose videographs are available today. And you can always watch them, understand them, how they are taking it and how they are performing. It also inspires a musician to sing better for the dance. It's for both sides, it helps musician as well as the dancer. And that is very, very important. Learning and keep listening to the compositions are the key for any dancers to develop their musicality as well as their quality of dance. I think that is very essential. Yes.
I totally agree. Actually, you made me think, like, the years and years. Like, usually when we learn new item, we come to the class and we start learning without even listening. Um, yeah, I think we've been all guilty with that. So this is a good point for me. You have to
I think
introduce
good point for all of us, all the
for all
musicians
of
as well as for the dancers.
no
It is
this
very essential. And also we have the notion, oh, I'm singing for dance, but I don't go for any other dance performances. I go only for the performance that I sing for. Nobody makes that effort to go and watch different dances, and different art forms also helps. Kathakali,
yeah
Odissi, Kathak, those things also
yeah
help. Can be inspiring. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying you should attend all the performances, which is not possible at all. But certain things can be really inspiring and encouraging for us to develop our own skill sets. That is very important. Yes.
yeah. So that brings us to my final question today. But this is something that all dancers kind of trying to research opportunities, and so every dancer wants to learn as many items and have so many choices in their repertoire. So how would you choose? Where do we look? Like, we want to learn something new. We want to dance something different from everyone else. So any advice? Where should we look?
Two things that I would like to highlight today, and some of them might find it very offending, but no matter, I'm going to speak out. One thing, as a start, when you start learning dance, when you start focusing on your repertoire, when you're doing your arangetram, I would request them to, I highly recommend you do composers such as Tanjore Quartet. It's very important. I think you can never find such musical pieces for dance other than Tanjore Quartet. Of course, there are varnams are being written for arangetrams, and which is not a bad thing. But if at all, if you are starting your career with modern day composers, at least later when you develop your career, when you start learning advanced level lessons after the arangetram, you go for traditional pieces. And also the other notion that you just mentioned, all the dancers, each time they want to be different. That has become the case. Oh, she is doing Mohamana. Oh, it's being done to death. But even if you do it a million times, and when you do it the million and first time, Mohamana can still be, because certain compositions are timeless. Tanjore Quartet repertoire are timeless compositions. And today there is also another notion of thematic presentations. My dance repertoire, the presentation is going to be on global warming, climate change. I'm going to do a piece on climate change. I'm going to speak up against racism. I know those are the notion that comes up. And how convincingly you are able to bring those ideas into your performance, itself is a challenge, if you ask me. If you are able to convey those messages through your dance, well and good. Go for new compositions, go to a musician, write your own lyric and bring out those. And as I was telling you earlier, Javali is one of the composition which has had that cosmopolitan effect. You have Javalis written in with Telugu and English. I think I will just sing that "Oh My Lovely Lalana." Many of the dancers might have had the opportunity to listen to the composition done by many people. It's a composition Karur Shivaramayar. Oh my lovely lalana yelane pomanti. Oh my lovely lalana yelane pomanti. Oh my lovely lalana. It is one of those compositions where it lets you to bring a language of its own. Also, you have Parsi Javalis coming into. You have Hindi. Some of the words, very folkish idea of Javalis coming. There are compositions which gives you the liberty to do that as well. Throughout the history, you also have different kind of compositions being performed. There is a composition that is completely on nritta, there is completely on abhinaya. So those scope is there. But what happens in modern day, we want to pack everything in one. There is the notion of I want to do a padavarnam for 45 minutes with complicated jatis, complicated syllables and complicated choreography, which sounds looks stunning and very spectacular. But how long you will be able to do that on a longer time? You do Kalyani Jatiswaram 10 concerts consecutively. I don't think anybody will find it odd or not being very beautiful. But if you want to do something different, you keep doing that. After a point, you think, what is it actually conveying? There is something aesthetic of your art form which has a particular framework. Within that, you try to explore and do new things. I think it will be appealing to everybody. But when it comes to modern day composers and compositions, what I see online today, you have varnams are being composed every day, and the new jatis and complicated jatis. Yes, they are brilliant. They are extremely brilliant. It takes enormous amount of talent and dedication to come up with such choreography. But whether it will last for a very long time, I'm not very convinced about, because you still look up to Tanjore Quartet, and when it comes to Kirtanams and Kritis, you still look up to Tyagaraja Dikshitar and Shama Sastri and Patnam Subramaniar and then the rest. But when it comes to today's composition, one thing that I find what is lacking is the lyrical thinking, the poetic ability to bring in the element, that is lacking. Padavarnam, they think if you write a swara and then fill it with lyric, they think it's Padavarnam. No, it is not. Padavarnam has a different frame of work. I think we will discuss in some other session why Tanjore Quartet stand out and what is a Padavarnam, how the misunderstanding of Padavarnam as fully lyrical is represented today. That is for some other time. But when it comes to choosing your repertoire, I would always request to begin with, you choose traditional items. You do your Kamboji Shabdam, you do such items, you do Kautam, you do your traditional Tanjore Quartet, Jatiswaram and Varnam and Padam of Kshetrajna and Mututandavar Padams. You have fantastic Padams, that are composed 200, 300 years ago. And you have Javalis composed by Dharmapuri Subrayar and Patnam Subramanyar, and later Karur Shivaramayar. You have some funny elements of English and other languages being added into that. Nevertheless, you do all that and try to discover where these things lie, what are the audience are looking for. Also, it is a responsibility of a musician and a dancer to bring the quality of the audience as well. You give them the good product or give them the good performance, and nobody is going to walk away. They will love it. There is always notion, oh, these traditional items might be boring. It can never be boring, because we are still singing Dikshitar Kirtanam every day, Tyagaraja Shyama Sastri's Kritis every day. People have not found it boring, because it's all up to the dancer and the musician to come to a conviction that, what traditional items is the key to start with. Later in your career, if you want to do new things and innovative things, I think definitely go for it. Once in a while, it's good. Once in a while, innovating and coming up with new themes and repertoire is fantastic. I don't think nothing is wrong. It's always good to be experimenting with new things, but don't go away from the roots. That's what I'm saying, but it is Mohamana is for eternity. That's what I'm trying to convey. I hope nobody takes offense from there, but I'm not against anything new, but sticking to the roots always helps. Yeah.
It makes sense. So you're always grounded into your knowledge, like whatever you learned, you always come back to your roots, right? So I guess it's nice. So you don't fly away somewhere in a different direction. You always ground yourself with your classical composition.
Yeah,
and
because
I'm sure. Yeah, there are so many
because your
compositions.
classical music, your ballet and your opera, they still stick to the framework, and they will never go away from that. They will innovate within that space. I think that's where we need to focus, and we need to. I think that is very essential. Not losing the roots of your art form and
I'm
compositions that
sure
are.
there are so many older compositions that we haven't explored yet, right?
Yes, yes. Even
Again,
Tanjore Quartet, we have not completely performed or completely explored. So that has to happen first. I think people should take that up and start experimenting with that. Let's see.
so that's why we need people like you who research and who know, because again, dancers we might be a bit limited. Even like, where do we start looking for these compositions, right? So the my advice will be find good musicians and
Good
get
musician,
advice.
yes. Yeah. And also, ask the same musician to bring up with a traditional repertoire which has not been done for a long time. Dharmapuri, Subra, Javali, it is done now. People are looking into all that now. And when it comes to Tanjore Quartet, I think that most of their beautiful varnams are still not performed. Only few dancers they stick to. I know some dancers whom I have worked very strongly feel about Tanjore Quartet repertoire, which is, I think, hats off to them, because some of them are really keen on exploring the Tanjore Quartet, because some of the items are not performed at all. I think it is very important for us to look there, because if at all, if we attribute the current Margam setup to them, it is not completely proven that they are the only formula, so this should come first. But they have done a compilation of all the repertoire. They have composed a rich repertoire. I think, even in Padams and Javalis during the Swadi Tirunal's time, those Padams also can be done. Malayalam Padams and compositions can be done as Padams in our Bharatanatyam repertoire. It's very beautiful. Like some of the Ireman Thambis and compositions are extremely beautiful. I think it's time for us to find new from traditional repertoire. There are plenty that are new.
Old is gold. So
Yeah,
I'm sure
old is
all the
gold. I
dancers
believe
are
that. I
going.
think it is. New is
They're
not
going.
something to look down, but old is gold. Definitely, yes.
I guess all the dancers are going to go to the libraries and search
Yes, please go to library.
inspiration.
Some of the scholars have worked meticulously to highlight these historical evolution of our repertoire. Read them. The key is to read and research and learn, and put your effort on your dancing. Of course, we all can be better, as Oksana said, better human beings and artists. Next, yeah.
So yes, please don't do your research on the YouTube. Just do your research.
Yes, go to
Because
libraries. There are plenty of scholars around the world who can always approach them. Yes.
yeah, because we do have trends. If you see some amazing performance in YouTube, and I know I've been thinking the same way. I really want to dance that. You kind
Yeah.
of like. I'm sure the same with the music. You hear something beautiful and you want to recreate it in your own way.
Yeah.
But it's really tempting in a way.
True,
So
true. And also there is another notion of musicians also taking it light. Padam is a very, very difficult task to sing. Even when I started singing Padam, it sounded like a Kirtana to me. What am I singing? I'm not singing it like a Padam. I'm singing it like a Kirtana. So how do I make the change? Because the composition type is the same. There are sangatis, there are nuances. But what is the difference between this and Kriti? It's not just the lyric. There is something else. That's why you start looking into Brinda Mukta, Bala Saraswati, Amma, their way of singing. There is a way to sing a padam. It's not the way you sing it a regular kirtanam of Tyagaraja and Dikshit. That no, you cannot sing it that way. It needs a different kind of a practice to sing a padam. So it is also very challenging. I think most of the musicians like me, I'm like, we are taking it very easy and then singing it as the way we want. We should also make that effort to bring that quality of singing. That is our responsibility as well. So in that sense, it goes both ways. Somebody chooses a very, very easy item for me, I would say, oh yeah, this is good. Yeah, let's do this. Like, as you said, dancer goes to YouTube and type some composition on Krishna, Shiva, things like that. A musician receives the song. Oh, I know this song. It's a very, very simple tune. Yeah, of course, this is beautiful. Let's do it. That is the notion of making things beautiful because they are very easy to go with. But I think
yeah,
the trend should change now. Of course, there is nothing wrong in doing simpler items and easy items. Of course, people have done that. I'm just saying it becomes our responsibility to keep the tradition going, because we have been taken such a responsibility, and it is very key. A key point is to keep it going, and also do your own experiments and things like that. Yes.
Don't get carried away with the trend.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So thanks a lot. This is all the questions that we can cover today. I have
Thank you.
many more.
Thank you so
I'm sure
much.
other people do. So I'm not going to let you off so easily. So we have to schedule another session sometime soon. And people can just send us any questions they would like to ask, and we can cover like the history of dance, the temple architecture, and so many other topics.
So yes, so I hope this dialogue continues, because we should at least once in a few months we plan and do. I would be really excited to do it with you. We speak about the repertoire of dance and history of dance, different forms and things like that. We can take it slowly so that people get an idea of it, and we all can learn together and grow together. That's my only idea when it comes to sharing. And I think people have started asking questions. Are we taking questions now? Can we?
I don't see any questions at the
I think
moment.
we've got a question. I think somebody has asked any suggestions for resources online or in books for us who live abroad that he would think will be of help. I don't mean music resources, but on the topic he's talking about with regards to understanding the compositions and choosing our pieces wisely. There is a question from Ms. Jayanti Santanam.
Yes.
So again, another important question: where do we go for resources? People who don't live in Chennai, and even some of the finest works that I have found is online, because most of the wonderful work from the past have been scanned and uploaded and freely available. And topics such as understanding the composition and choosing our pieces wisely. My suggestion to Ms. Jayanti Santanam would be, when it comes to choosing wisely, I think it's always a perception about what do I choose. If at all, if you're talking about traditional pieces, the Tanjore Quartet, their composition is completely available online. It is published in Tamil, unfortunately. If at all, if you are not a person who speak the language, you can always take somebody's help to bring down all the notation in English and start working on that. Dharmapuri Subbaraya's compositions such as Javalis are also available online. Some of the Javalis are available online. And when you make a visit to Chennai, please ensure you visit bookstalls and purchase the books so that you can always take it up. And when it comes to understanding the musicality of dance, there is a lot of work that's been done, and I don't know how many are available online today. I would to understand the repertoire and musicality of Devadasis and recent time. The pioneering work is Saskia Casaubon's Nitya Sumangali. That is a very, very pioneering work. I think I don't in Kindle, I think, or at Amazon it's available. If you're able to get it delivered, fine. And people like Davesh Soneji, who had written a fantastic work talking about the Devadasi tradition in the last 200 years, that Unfinished Gestures is a fantastic work. I think every dancer should read that. And Professor S. Raghuraman, History of Dance of Tamil people, Tamilar Nadana Varalaru in Tamil. That is a very, very essential work. And such detailed research have been done on such tradition. And also Women of Pride by I think Lakshmi Vishwanathan, her book on Devadasi heritage, it's very essential. I think these are the points to, the books to study and material to study with. When it comes to compositions, as I said earlier, Tanjore Quartet and Dharmapuri Subbarayas and Swati Tirunal compositions, all of them are available on Amazon, I guess, if you're able to order them. Or some of the composition might be available with notation online, which I'm not very sure. If at all, if I find, I will share it in Cosmic Dance Facebook page. Later, people can look it up. Yes.
That will be amazing. I mean, we need the knowledge from someone like you, because otherwise we're just stuck in the four walls.
Yeah, knowledge is everywhere. Even people who live in abroad, in the countries such as US and Europe and UK, many scholars from foreign universities have done enormous amount of research on our Indian culture and dance and performing arts. I think look it up, and very important work that are available also in many of the published materials. That's what I would suggest. Yes, I think that was the only question.
Do we have any more questions? Yeah, I think this is the only question. So thank you everyone for joining us. This is something that I think we just should speak up, because sometimes, again, being shy or being busy or so many other things, and lockdown is actually making us so lucky in a way that we can approach someone like Jai Kumar and ask all the questions. So to be continued, and I would like just to mention, because I know Jai Kumar is very shy, that he also teaches music online. He also, as I said already, providing the tours. So when India is open, please don't skip this amazing opportunity to go into the temples and find out more about our heritage. See, I'm saying our Indian heritage.
Once you are in India, and you are also part of our Indian heritage, because you have learned something and you are part of our culture and heritage. So it is, yes.
So thank you so much, Jai Kumar. I'm so happy to
Thank
have
you so much.
so much
Thank you for
information
having me.
from
And
you.
I don't know. So this is very exciting. It was I was very happy to share few thoughts, that I had, and I look forward for such discussions in the future. As I said, we can always catch up, and we can always discuss on repertoire and different compositions and compositions types and all that. Hopefully, I will be able to share more at that time. Thank you so much.
Definitely. Thank you so much.
Definitely.
Bye
Thank
bye,
you.
everyone.
Take care.
Keep
Thank you.
following us for more updates. Bye bye.